Welcome to our deep dive today. We're going to be looking at success. Not just the usual talent and hard work thing, but kind of some unexpected factors that go into it. And we're going to be looking at Malcolm Gladwell's book, Outliers, for this. Get ready for some really interesting examples. We're even going to talk about why being born in January might give you an advantage in Canadian hockey.
Yeah, it's fascinating how we often focus on the individual when explaining success, but Outliers really pushes us to consider this much broader perspective.
Yeah,
The influence of our environment and even just random circumstances.
yeah, for sure. And like right off the bat, Gladwell starts with this story about Roseto, Pennsylvania. It's the 1960s, and the people there have these remarkably low rates of heart disease. And it wasn't because they were all like super healthy. They smoked. They had these big hearty meals and weren't exactly hitting the gym all the time. So what was going on?
At first, researchers thought it might be diet, exercise, genetics, maybe even something about where Roseto was located, but they couldn't really figure it out. It turned out the secret was hidden in, the social connections of Roseto itself.
Oh, interesting. So tell me more about that.
Okay, so this town was all about close relationships. People were constantly visiting each other, sharing meals, and just genuinely helping each other out. Community was basically their superpower.
So it sounds like this strong social structure actually protected them from stress, which led to better health. Makes you wonder how much we're really responsible for our own well-being. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It challenges that idea that it's all down to us as individuals. You have to factor in things like culture, community, and family. They all play a part.
It's like our environment really sets the stage for success. And speaking of setting the stage, let's talk about the 10,000-hour rule. This idea from Gladwell really got me thinking about the role of practice in achieving success.
Yeah, the 10,000-hour rule. It basically says that to really master something, any field, you're going to need to put in around 10,000 hours of deliberate practice. Not just doing it, but really pushing yourself focused effort to improve those skills.
Yeah, and the examples Gladwell uses are mind-blowing. He talks about Bill Joy, this software prodigy, back in the early 70s. He had this incredible access to computers, so he was racking up thousands of programming hours before he even went to college. Then you've got the Beatles honing their music skills, playing constantly in Hamburg clubs. They did something like 1,200 live shows before they hit it big. And of course, there's Bill Gates, who had unusual access to computers in the late 60s and was spending hours and hours programming as a teenager. Yeah. Really makes you think about the whole nature versus nurture debate. How much is raw talent versus having that opportunity to really practice and hone your skills?
Right. Imagine someone incredibly musically gifted, but they never have access to an instrument or a place to perform. Their talent might never even be recognized. Those examples really show how crucial access to practice is just to hit that 10,000-hour mark.
It's not just about working hard, but about having the circumstances to allow that hard work to happen. That's pretty profound. And it makes me think of another concept Gladwell talks about, demographic luck. The idea that even something as random as when you were born can affect your chances.
He uses Canadian hockey leagues as an example. They have these age cutoffs, right? So kids born earlier in the year often have a physical advantage. They get more ice time, better coaching, and just more chances to practice. Over time, that early advantage keeps building, making them way more likely to reach the professional level. And, it makes you wonder how much talent is overlooked because of those kinds of structural limits.
It's like a hidden advantage that has nothing to do with how talented or dedicated you are. It makes you question how we identify potential in the first place. Gladwell points out that this pattern shows up in other fields too, like how software giants Bill Gates and Bill Joy were both born just as the personal computer was taking off. So they were in the perfect position to ride that wave of innovation. So is success all just being in the right place at the right time?
Well, timing definitely plays a part, but it's not the whole story. Gladwell isn't saying intelligence isn't important, but he does make the point that after a certain level of IQ, having a super high IQ doesn't mean you're guaranteed to be successful.
Right.
Yeah.
And he talks about this thing called practical intelligence. It's basically knowing how to navigate social situations and get what you want. Kind of like street smarts versus book smarts.
Right, exactly. And he brings up Chris Langan, a man with an incredibly high IQ, but he faced some real challenges because he didn't have that practical intelligence or the opportunities to apply it, so it wasn't enough.
So Langan could learn like crazy, but he wasn't as good at the social side of things, using that intelligence in real-world situations. It really emphasizes how there are different kinds of intelligence, and just relying on IQ scores might not give you the whole picture of someone's potential.
Exactly. It's much more nuanced than that.
So we've got community, we've got practice, we've got timing, And now, practical intelligence. Looks like there's a whole recipe for success, and it's not always what we think. But there's another layer to this. Gladwell also explores the idea of cultural legacies. What do you think he means by that?
So, cultural legacies, they're like those beliefs, values, and behaviors that are passed down through generations. They shape how we see the world, how we think about success. It's like a set of unwritten rules we inherit without even realizing it.
It's almost like an invisible force that affects our actions and choices.
Yeah, pretty much. And Gladwell uses some really interesting examples to show how this works in real life. Like he talks about the success of Jewish lawyers in New York. They really made their mark in areas like corporate takeovers, which were areas that a lot of those big established firms kind of stayed away from.
So they found their niche.
Yeah, and
Right.
part of their success was because their background, their culture, made them more comfortable with those aggressive negotiation tactics. They were willing to take risks that other firms weren't.
It's like their cultural heritage gave them a totally different approach. They were more adaptable, more open to new possibilities. Makes you think about how our backgrounds shape our comfort zones. And he also talks about this culture of honor in the American South, this legacy that affects how people interact, even how they react to insults.
Right, and this culture has roots in a history where protecting your property and your reputation was super important, so it can make people more sensitive to disrespect, more likely to respond with force.
It's fascinating how these deep-seated cultural patterns still have such an influence today. And what about that example with Korean Air? I was blown away by how cultural communication styles actually played a role in their safety record.
Oh yeah, that one's a powerful example of how cultural legacies can have real-world consequences. So Gladwell explains how Korean pilots, coming from a culture that emphasizes hierarchy and respect for authority, were sometimes hesitant to question their captains, even in really dangerous situations.
So it's like a cultural barrier to speaking up.
Yeah, and then they switched to using English in the cockpit. English is a language that doesn't put as much emphasis on power dynamics, and their safety record actually improved. It's pretty amazing to think that language can be a tool for cultural change, helping people communicate in a way that breaks down those ingrained social norms.
It really shows how important it is to understand these cultural nuances, especially in high-pressure situations. But Gladwell doesn't just focus on those negative legacies. He also tells the story of Louis Bourgonicht, a Jewish immigrant who found success in the garment industry through hard work and dedication.
Yeah, Borgenick basically started with nothing when he came to America. But he had this incredible work ethic and a thirst for learning, values that came from his family and his culture. He was willing to put in the hours, the effort, because his work had meaning for him. It was a way to provide for his family.
It's like a classic American dream story, right? Determination and hard work leading to success.
It actually ties back to our earlier discussion about the rice paddy farmers in Asia. Their intense work ethic is rooted in a culture that values diligence and sees a direct connection between effort and reward. And that connection is especially strong in rice cultivation, which requires so much patience and attention to detail.
It's like their work ethic is part of their cultural DNA, shaping how they approach challenges and how much they believe in the power of hard work. And it shows how cultural legacies can also be a source of strength and resilience, shaping our attitudes towards work and perseverance.
Yeah, exactly. It's not all negative.
It also reminds us that hard work is most rewarding when it's tied to something meaningful, something you believe in. But even with the strongest work ethic, access to opportunities still plays a crucial role, right?
Oh, absolutely. That's why Gladwell argues that we need a society that gives everyone a fair chance to succeed, no matter where they come from or what their circumstances are. He uses KPP Academy, a school in the South Bronx, as an example. They provide students with more learning time and foster this culture of high expectations, and the results are amazing. The KPP students, a lot of them from disadvantaged backgrounds, actually outperform kids in traditional public schools.
That's a powerful example of how much of a difference opportunity can make, especially when it's combined with a supportive environment and a belief in the student's potential. But not everyone has access to a school like KPP. How can we create more of those opportunities for everyone?
Well, that's the big question. It's about taking the principles that work at KPP, things like longer school days, those high expectations, the strong sense of community, and figuring out how to apply them more broadly.
So how do we scale that up? It seems like a massive undertaking.
It is, but it's not impossible. It starts by recognizing that talent is everywhere, but opportunity is not. We can push for better schools in our own communities, support early childhood education programs, and create more chances for kids to learn and grow, both inside and outside of school. Even something as simple as volunteering or donating to organizations that focus on educational equity can make a real difference.
So it's about taking action, big or small, to build a world where more people have the chance to succeed. Outliers has been eye-opening for me. It shows how success isn't just about individual effort, but about the systems and structures we create.
Gladwell reminds us that we're all connected and that each person's success is built on a foundation of shared opportunities and support.
It's like this ripple effect. When we create opportunities for others, we're making a better world for everyone. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Outliers, let's all think about the advantages we've been given, even the ones we might not realize we have, and find ways to extend those advantages to others.
Let's try to create a world where outliers, those amazing success stories, are not the exception, but the norm. Thanks for being here with us on this journey. We hope it's given you some new ideas and inspired you to see the world in a new way.
And remember, it's never too late to start questioning the world around us and working towards a future that's more fair and just. A future where everyone has the chance to reach their full potential. So we're back for the final part of our deep dive into Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell.
We've been talking about all these surprising factors that shape success. Everything from the power of community to those cultural legacies we inherit.
Yeah, it's definitely challenged the way we usually think about success. Not just talent and hard work, but all these other influences.
I gotta admit, though, it can be a bit overwhelming to think about how much things like our birth date or cultural background can affect our chances. It makes you wonder if we have any control at all. I get that. It's a natural reaction. But I think what's so great about Outliers is that Gladwell doesn't just leave us feeling helpless. He gives us a way to understand these influences so we can work with them and create more opportunities for ourselves and for others.
So it's not about being stuck, but about understanding the game and then figuring out how to play it.
Right.
Exactly.
Remember Louis Bourgonait, the guy who found success in the garment industry? His story shows how powerful it can be to find work that really means something to you, something that aligns with your values. When your work has purpose, all that effort doesn't feel like a burden anymore. It's more like an investment in something you believe in.
That really hit home for me. It's not just about chasing a paycheck. It's about finding that work where your skills and passions connect with a bigger purpose. And it reminds me of the 10,000-hour rule. If you're passionate about something, you're way more likely to put in those hours, even if it takes years of practice, to really master it.
That's the key. Deliberate practice that's driven by genuine interest. It changes how you experience those hours. It becomes a journey of growth and fulfillment.
Okay, so we've got meaningful work, dedicated practice. But what about those things that feel completely outside our control? Things like cultural legacies and demographic luck. How do we deal with those?
Well, understanding those factors doesn't mean we can't do anything about them. It just means we need to be aware of the advantages or disadvantages they might give us. And then we can look for ways to level the playing field.
So being aware of our starting point, knowing that not everyone starts from the same place.
Exactly. Like, if you're aware that your cultural background makes you hesitant to speak up in groups, you can actively work on those skills. Maybe you find mentors who can help you navigate different cultural situations, or you intentionally interact with people from diverse backgrounds to expand your comfort zone.
So it's about being proactive, taking ownership of that cultural legacy, and using it to your advantage. And if we're in a position of power, we can focus on creating opportunities for those who haven't had those same advantages.
Absolutely. It's about being an agent of change, both personally and systemically. Remember Gladwell's example of KPP Academy. It's a great model, but not everyone can attend a school like that.
So how do we take those principles?
Yeah.
Longer learning time, high expectations, strong community. How do we make those more widespread? It seems like a huge challenge.
It is a big challenge, but not an impossible one. It starts with that basic understanding. Talent is everywhere, but opportunity is not. So we can advocate for better schools in our communities, support early childhood education, create more learning opportunities for kids outside of traditional classrooms, even volunteering our time or donating to organizations that focus on educational equity can make a difference.
It's about taking action, doing what we can, to create a world where more people have a real shot at success. Outliers has been a real eye-opener. It's shown me that success isn't just about individual grit. It's about the systems and structures we build.
Gladwell reminds us that we're all interconnected. Our successes are built on shared opportunities and support.
It's like that ripple effect we were talking about. Creating opportunities for others ultimately creates a better world for everyone. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Outliers, let's all challenge ourselves. Let's think about those advantages we've been given, even the ones we might not be aware of, and find ways to share those advantages with others.
Let's work towards a world where outliers, those exceptional successes, aren't the exception, but the rule.
Thanks for joining us. We hope you found this exploration insightful and that it inspires you to look at the world in new ways.
And remember, it's never too late to start questioning, to start pushing for a more equitable and just future. A future where everyone, regardless of their background or circumstances, has the chance to achieve their full potential.